Hi everyone, it's Suey. Today I'm going to do a quick book recommendations tag, Classics Edition. I was just looking around for some tag I could do, and it seems like this is one that people have been doing lately, but I'm not exactly sure who started it. I just saw lots of people do it without really naming anyone. The one I found has 20 prompts on it, and I thought I would do a classics edition of this. So when I went through my classic books a while back, I had a feeling that there's a lot of people who would like some classic recommendations. And so I thought I would just go through these prompts and try to come up with a classic book that fits it. Let's just go for it. A book you tell people is your favorite. So most of the time, I would say that Pride and Prejudice is my favorite classic book. This is pretty much up there. Also, thinking I'm going to count The Book Thief. I don't know. I guess this one's not really considered a classic yet, but I actually saw it. Where is my Book Thief? I actually saw this on a lot of people's classic lists. In the grand definition of things, I guess it's not quite there yet because it was published when, 2007 or something? 2005. 2005? So it has a ways to go before it's really considered a classic. What, 50 years published or something like that might be people's definitions. But so yeah, you have a ways to go. But this is actually the book that I recommend to people most often. But if we're gonna do classics, Pride and Prejudice, yes. A book that is your guilty pleasure. I've never quite understood the whole guilty pleasure thing. I guess it's something that you like when you know you're not supposed to like. And if that's the definition, then for me, this would be Wuthering Heights. I know most people can't stand this book. They think it's very, very disturbing, very abusive, very toxic, a very toxic relationship. Yes, yes it is. But I still love it. So there you go, my guilty pleasure. Loving Wuthering Heights when I know I should not love it because Heathcliff is a bad, bad, bad boy. Why do I feel so much emotion about him? I don't know, but I do. So there you go, guilty pleasure. This book gets to me every single time I read it. Probably the older I get, the better it gets as far as that deep emotion. But I should know that it's bad, bad, bad. A book everyone loved, but you didn't. So I think most people actually quite love The Great Gatsby, but I never understood the whole hype about it. I know it's probably trying to say something about society and relationships and all kinds of things. I don't know. And the thing is I haven't reread this one in my old age, and I might think of it differently, but I haven't had time to fit it in yet. Even though it's only little, I could handle this, but I just don't get it. And I know there's probably a lot of other people who don't like this one, but I feel like there's a lot that do, and it's on a lot of people's favorites list. So I would consider this one to be a classic that I don't really like. A book I read the fastest. This one I couldn't really come up with anything. I mean, I guess a shortish one I could say I read the fastest. Maybe something like Animal Farm, because you know that one can be read really fast. I have no idea how long it took me to read it, and I've read this one a couple times, probably in school, and I think probably for book club or something. But you can read this one in a sitting. So let's say Animal Farm. A book that deserves more hype. I feel like all classics deserve more hype. There's some maybe that is my favorite more than others. Maybe Great Expectations. I don't think I have that one on my list for something else. This one I feel like covers all the things a book needs. Like everything. And I think I've mentioned before, I read this one first when I was in 8th grade and didn't understand a word of it, except that there was a lady that had a wedding spread out with cobwebs all over the place, and that was creepy. When I read it later on, I absolutely loved it. That later on that I read it is quite a ways in the past too, so now I've already kind of forgotten all the things that I thought about it then. So it's obviously time for another reread. I would love to reread this one again if I could fit it in between all the other things I'm wanting to do. Maybe it needs more hype. I don't know. Do you guys feel like it gets hype already? I don't know. A book that is becoming a movie or TV show. Do you guys know of any classics that's becoming a movie lately? I mean, I feel like most of them have a movie. That's kind of what the cool thing is about classics. Most of them do. I don't know of any that's becoming a movie in the near future. So if you guys know, be sure and let me know, because I will like to put that on my list for sure. A book that you reread the most. So this one we go back to Pride and Prejudice for. I really don't know how many times I've read this one now. Maybe 10. A lot of people do Jane Austen rereads of all Jane Austen every year. I'm not quite like that, but I have read it more than I kept track. The more you read it, the better it gets. And I love getting into the flow of this world, this language, and anyway, I love it when I can get into the groove of this world. A book from a genre you don't typically read. So this one doesn't really apply when I'm just doing all classic genre. There might be some classics, but, oh, kitty. There might be some classics that are a little bit out of my comfort zone. I would say maybe like Atlas Shrugged. Yeah, this is a little bit, her books are a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I've still pushed through many of them and found them to be quite fascinating. Let's go with Atlas Shrugged on that one, I guess. Oh, I had a fly bothering me and now I have a kitty bothering me. A book that deserves all the hype that it does get. So before it was a book that needs more hype, a book that gets a lot of hype. The one I thought of for this, Little Women, I mean, how many times has it been made into a movie? Can we even count that? And it gets a lot of hype, and I think that it does deserve it because these are great characters, great emotion. It makes you crazy at the end for most of us. It has all the things. Jo's an awesome character that girls today can even look up to, and girls throughout all the ages can look up to. She's just sort of an all-time great character. So yes, I would say Little Women deserves the hype. A book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. So The Book Thief kind of falls into this one too, if we're going to count it sort of as a classic. But I also feel like I would say I recommend Wilkie Collins. I'm not going to pull these all off the shelf, but there's my Wilkie Collins section. You can't even see it on the camera. Anyway, we have a pile of Wilkie Collins, and I think this is an author, a classic author, that many people haven't tried. So I like to recommend him and see what you guys think. And he's really funny. A lot of witty stuff, a lot of silly, crazy, funny stuff goes on in his books. A lot of character development and crazy relationship stuff and situations, and I don't know. I just really loved it. It's been a while since I've read his stuff, so I can't. And all of his books sort of mesh together, so I can't give a totally specific example. But if you haven't tried Wilkie Collins, that would be my recommendation. A book that has your favorite characters. This book, A Tale of Two Cities. This one could go on my favorites of all the things too, but I picked this one for favorite characters because Sidney Carton is the character in this book who just completely, totally slays me. He's one of those guys who seems so mysterious and you don't really know him very well, and he seems grumpy, and he seems he's almost the anti-hero, I would say, because he seems so different from who you would fall in love with, but he is amazing. Most people are familiar with the story. Are we familiar with the story? Because I don't really want to spoil it if we aren't, but the sacrifice he makes in this book for the girl that he loves is probably one of the best stories ever, and it kills me every time, and I just absolutely adore him. He is my favorite character, one of my all-time favorite characters of all books, all characters, everyone. A book you wish you could live in. Okay, for this one, we're going down into a different section of classics, the kids' classics. I guess you can consider this one a kid's book. I don't know what it is. But anyway, a book I could live in, Anne of Green Gables, for absolutely positive sure. Who would not want to live in Prince Edward Island, in the community with all of these fun people, great characters, happiness, joy most of the time. The situations aren't life-threatening. The world isn't life-threatening. It's kind of a beautiful place and a beautiful time. Let's go live there. Let's do it. A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. I got to think of this one. I feel like I might hate Moby Dick and then maybe love it, but I haven't actually read that one yet. Everybody thinks they're going to hate War and Peace, and I read most of this book and loved most of it. It is thick and sloggy at parts, but I love the characters. There's really not very many books that I start reading that I think I'm going to hate. You know what I mean? Because if I'm going to read it, I don't know, I guess there are a few sometimes, but with classics, I usually feel like I'm going to love them. So that one's kind of a hard question for me to answer. A book that made me cry. I wrote two down for this one. Okay, The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. I always think of this book for something that made me cry. The main character, she works so hard, so hard to preserve her family farm in China. And her kids grow up and just throw it all away. It makes me a little weepy thinking about it right now. It's so painful at the end. And I don't know if that's a true spoiler. I mean, I guess it's kind of a spoiler, right? If you haven't read it, just know that those kids of hers are going to rip your heart out because of their absolutely no concern for all the things that this character has been through. Yeah, this one killed me. Also, I would say Where the Red Fern Grows, which I don't think I have on the shelf down here. It's upstairs, so I won't show that one, but of course, and that's a great kids classic that will absolutely make you sob at the end. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with that one and knows how that one ends. If you aren't, what are you waiting for? Go and read it like right now. So that one is absolutely devastating at the end. Anything that has to do with animals is painful to read. So a book you wish you could read again for the first time. For this one, I'm going to the kids section again. This is my well-loved, beaten up, little Scholastic Book Fair copy of The Secret Garden. I love this story so much. The Little Princess too, actually. She wrote both, Frances Hodgson Burnett, didn't she? I love both stories so much. And The Secret Garden, I think, is another book that I've read more times than I can count. But wouldn't it be fun to read this one again for the first time and feel that same joy and happiness of how all the things turn out? Yes, it's so good. I love it so much. A book that could cure a reading slump. I did not think of one for this. A book that could cure a reading slump. Classics are probably not books to go to if you're in a slump, just because they do take a little bit of more brain power, I should say, a little bit more focus. They probably aren't the best choice to get out of a slump, but maybe something like a kid's classic would help get you out of a slump. If you're in a slump, choose your favorite kid classic and read that, and I bet you that would help you get out of a slump. A book you think everyone needs to read. So this one I wrote, The Book Thief again. But I'm cheating, as I said before, because probably not considered a classic. As far as a classic I think everyone needs to read, let's just mention some of my others. Great Expectations, for sure. Women, The Good Earth, A Tale of Two Cities. Yeah, all my most favorites, I would say everyone needs to read. How's that for kind of getting out the question? A book you think would make an amazing movie. So as we've said, most of these have been made into a movie, and they are all pretty great, right? What would be a good movie? I don't know. All these, they're all so soap opera-y and so full of crazy stories. And most of them have been made into pretty good movies, right? And like many movies, like so many movies. Okay, a book you wish everyone would give a shot, even if it's out of their comfort zone. I would say any Wilkie Collins or any Charles Dickens book. If classics is out of your comfort zone, then you should at least give those guys a try. Even when they're smaller ones. Yeah, Tale of Two Cities or The Moonstone or The Lady in White by Wilkie Collins. Yeah, I think that would be a good starter place for classics, for getting into the classics. And then the last one is a book you'll never forget. And I've saved this one. I know a lot of people have big feelings about this one, Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. This one is so powerful that yes, I will never forget it. And a lot of people hate this book, I think because there's a lot of description and a lot of heartache and it's quite depressing. It really, really, really makes you feel what these characters are feeling. I was so frustrated for them while I was reading this book. And then it ends in one of the most crazy endings ever, which is probably one reason why this book is probably on a lot of banned book lists. I do wish I knew if John Steinbeck did this ending to shock us all, or if he did it to make us really understand what those characters are going through. It would be interesting to know what he was thinking. I will never forget it. This book is so powerful. But let me know what you guys think. Huh? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? I have talked about several books that I know some people can't handle. Jane Eyre didn't make my list this time, but I know Jane Eyre is also on the list of classics many people can't handle, but I still enjoy it. Most of my favorite classics I've been able to fit into one of these prompts. So that gives you an idea of some of my most favorite things and some things that I would suggest people to read if they haven't already. I love, love, love the classics, and I wish I could get more into them. I think maybe I need to do a month of just classics or something, or a classic a month or something. But my problem with classics is that they go slower, which means if I'm trying to read a lot more, like I am trying to do this year, if I'm trying to, get my numbers up, then it won't work to read a classic because it will slow me down. I used to do much better. I think the world these days has made most of us have a little shorter attention span and be less focused. I really, really, really believe that. I've seen it happening. I feel like that most people struggle with the classics more than they ever have done before. But I would love to try and get back to it myself and try to read so many of these books that I actually have on my shelf that I have managed to never get to. So there you have it, my book recommendations, classic edition. Let me know if I talked about something that sparks your interest that you want to read, or if you've read them all and you're just like, yes, that. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.